Look, I'm going to make one statement about the last game, and then we're moving on. All right, so just so everybody understands that, because our focus is someplace else.
You heard it from Nick Saban. His team is moving forward despite a tough, emotional overtime loss to LSU. We look ahead and look back on tonight's Tighter Insider Television.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tighter Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody. Alongside Rodney Orr from Tighter Insider, I'm TighterInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. I'm going to quit saying that. I'm just going to say Rodney Orr. I think everybody knows that you're with TighterInsider.com by now.
Everybody's learning your .com.
If they don't, then they ought to. The program, as always, is presented by Buffalo Rock. Enjoying ice-cold Pepsi Cola again this evening. And Rodney, let's get right to the business at hand. In Alabama's loss to LSU, the Tide was only 2 of 6 in field goal kicking. In fairness, most of those attempts were of the longer variety. And Nick Saban, when asked about the kicking game post-game in his press conference, pointed out that had the offense done what it should have done, the Tide wouldn't have been in that position to have to kick those long field goals to begin with.
It's not really fair to put this on the kickers for anybody. First of all, you know, we had the ball, I forget exactly the yard lines, on the 23, the 24, the 25, the 27, and maybe there was one more in there somewhere. I might be missing one. And we end up going backwards in every one of those circumstances. So it makes it a much more difficult kick. And now it's like it's all about the kickers. Well, what about the 4 plays that happened before the kick had to go in?
Well, Rodney, I don't think anybody is specifically blaming the kickers, okay? I understand they were long field goal attempts. But in fairness, you have to discuss it. It was a big part of the football game. Nick Saban chose to try those field goals. He had the option of either trying to punt it down and pin Penn State or going for it on 4th down. So when you choose to let them try to kick them and they miss them, then it's going to be controversial. And the way Alabama has recruited athletes all over the field, I think it is fair to ask the question, why have they not been able to recruit a kicker that can make long field goals? We look around the country, guys make 45-yard field goals all the time, Rodney.
Well, you know, they evaluated Cade Foster. He was a highly recruited player, Gary. A lot of other schools offered him, and, you know, right now he's struggling. There's no question about that with his confidence. Of course, Jeremy Shelley had a kick blocked as well. But, you know, here's how you kind of have to look at it. Cody Mandel has struggled as a punter. He has not exactly shown that he can pin a team back inside their 10-yard line.
That was probably a factor in kicking
That's
field goals.
exactly right.
But that's still part of the kicking game.
Well, here's what I'm saying. You have a choice. You know, you have 3 choices. You either go for it, or you punt it, and you take the risk of if the ball bounces in the end zone. Well, you netted what, 10, 12 yards. You rely on your defense. Saban believes in his defense. Try to get points. He tried to get points. It didn't work out.
Well, I hate to say this, Rodney, but the fact of the matter is I don't think there was anybody in that stadium, coaching staff, Cade Foster included, that thought he was going to make a 52-yard field goal in overtime. Yeah. I questioned sending him out there. I know 4th and 20 is not good odds, but I think it was better odds of trying to make the first down, throw a Hail Mary in the end zone, or get a penalty call on the defense than it was trying to kick that field goal. I'll never understand that decision.
You know, you look at the plays that Nick Saban talked about, the plays before that. You know, you're running well between the tackles. Again, I'm not questioning the play calling. I think for the most part it was fine. But, you know, you run wide, Eddie Lacy loses 5 yards. You have a 12 men in the huddle. You break with 12 men in the huddle, you lose 5 yards. I don't remember what happened on the other play, but I know they lost 5 yards. So again, you did go backwards. And so those things leading up to those kicks, those were mistakes too. So Alabama made plenty of mistakes.
All right. Going forward, you can't let this loss affect you against Mississippi State. I think that's what Nick Saban's trying to guard against now. This was an emotional loss, a physically taxing game on the team, some injuries that we'll talk about later. But going forward now, you got a Mississippi State team that's well rested. They played Tennessee Martin, which was basically just a warm-up game for them. It's a dangerous game in Starkville on Saturday night for the Tide.
Well, no question about it. I mean, if you want to talk about how rough the Alabama-LSU game was, a 6-6 game going into overtime, Mississippi State had it 9-6, was down 9-6 going in the 4th quarter against LSU before LSU kind of pulled away and won 19-6. Mississippi State is a very good football team. This is a big game for them. It's a huge game. They're 1-4 in the SEC. You know, Dan Mullen's an excellent coach. He has really good athletes in a lot of spots. And again, I think they're going to be highly motivated. This is always one of the biggest games for Mississippi State. You remember what I said before the season. I said one game that really scares me is Mississippi State, and the reason was it was coming the week after LSU, and I still say that. I think that this game could be closer than what some think.
And I agree with you. Of course, I think you thought Alabama. Well, I know we thought Alabama would beat LSU and be coming off a big victory. Instead, it's an emotional loss, but still, that's going to be a tough ball game. And Nick Saban offered these thoughts on Monday about what his team is focusing on this week, as well as what Alabama learned from its last performance.
Focusing on what you need to do, lining up right, doing it exactly like you need to do it, reading where you throw the ball, how you throw the ball, who you throw it to, at every position on the field. You know, on the offensive line and the defensive secondary, every position on the field. Were you able to focus on doing your job in the critical time in the game like you needed to do it correctly? Because that's what really gets you results. So you got to play smart. That's what we need to sort of take from all this. We're moving on. All right, we're moving on. We need to do what we need to do to take care of business on things that we can control. So when you ask me questions about things I have no control over, those are the kind of answers that you're going to get, because I am focused on the things that we can control, which is how our team plays.
The last part of that statement, when Saban was talking about focusing on things the team can control, he was talking about the BCS and Bama's chance of a rematch against LSU in the national championship game. It's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. You see Alabama third in the BCS, although if Stanford continues to win, they most likely will pass the Crimson Tide. Still, Alabama, it could happen. We've seen much stranger things happen. At the same time, Alabama doesn't control its own destiny anymore, Rodney, and that's what's disappointing about losing to LSU. Had they beaten LSU, they would control their own destiny. Now they are going to need some help.
Well,
and of course, take care of their own business as well.
Absolutely, and that's the biggest part right here, Gary. The only thing that Alabama can control is what they have left. And, you know, I'm not convinced that Alabama's going to finish out the regular season undefeated, because I think Mississippi State is certainly going to be fired up for this football game. You look down the road, I think going to Auburn's going to be a difficult game. If Alabama takes care of business, though, a couple of things happen for them. Stanford has 2 tough games, I think, and you look at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma will possibly take care of them. And then Oklahoma State, don't forget, they play Texas Tech this week. And, you know, Tommy Tuberville, he's done it before. He did it earlier this season against Oklahoma. Can he do it again? You know, certainly I think that would be big for Alabama. But again, the most important thing is Alabama has to take care of Alabama.
You know, Rodney, it's amazing. The teams that are undefeated won those games they could have lost. The teams that have a loss or two, Oklahoma, of course, Alabama against LSU, lost the game they could have won. I mean, that's simply what it comes down to. Stanford looked like they were beaten against USC. They found a way to win it. LSU probably should have been beaten against Alabama. They found a way to win it. Oklahoma could have beaten Texas Tech. They didn't. Alabama could have beaten LSU. It's a very fine line. But keep this in mind. If Alabama wins out, there's still a chance they could go to Atlanta. Arkansas is a one-loss team. They could beat LSU. Could have a 3-way tie. Could come down to the BCS standings. So there's a lot of football left. But as you said, Rodney, at first and foremost, Alabama has to win. That is their task at hand beginning on Saturday night. Well, still to come on Titv, the SEC now has 14 members, but how will that affect future football scheduling? Plus, we'll look ahead to game number 10 on the Tide's schedule. That will be all about Mississippi State. Could the Bulldogs pose a challenge? Tider Insider TV. We'll get to your phone calls and answer your emails. Give us a ring at 205-348-WVUA. And you can email us at the address on your screen as well. Up next, are they tournament bound? The Alabama soccer team received an NCAA bid on Monday. We'll hear from Coach Todd Bramble. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV, and the Alabama soccer team got some exciting news on Monday. That was the scene right there when Alabama found out they were NCAA tournament bound. It's just the second time in the history of the program the Tide has earned a berth, so you can understand their excitement. They'll head down to Coral Gables to play the University of Miami this coming weekend. Coach Todd Bramble says this is a nice payoff for his young ladies.
They've really bought into everything that the coaching staff has asked them to do. So this is a real victory for the program, in general. So yeah, I'm extremely excited.
Up next, we'll look ahead to what challenges Mississippi State might present on the Gridiron. Plus, we'll be taking your phone calls and getting to your emails. Tider Insider TV wants to hear from you. There's the number and the email address on our screen. Give us a call. Get in line to talk to us. We're coming back with injury news as well. Stay with us.